All schools are now required to identify 5 to 10% of their pupils as being gifted and talented. These will be the pupils who are the most able or have the potential to be the most able. It's a totally inclusive model and will include children from all walks of life and backgrounds.
We truly believe in provision for children. It's about providing the right environment and the right experience which actually allows all children the opportunity to demonstrate their talent and their ability.
It's inclusive, it's not something separate. It's about children and young people having challenge in their lessons every single day.
If you believe that education is making the most of every child's abilities, then that means that you need to make the most of every child's abilities, including the children who are the most able.
In this film, we will see how 3 secondary schools have implemented a gifted and talented programme, using the core principles of provision, identification and monitoring. Eastleigh Community School, which specialises in maths and technology, is new to implementing a gifted and talented programme.
Why I think Gifted and Talented made a huge difference to our school is that by focusing on our gifted and talented students and our high-attaining students, automatically has a knock-on effect on the attainment of other students in the school and thereby raises standards for everyone.
What we're looking at today is something that you don't always do in primary school. It's called algebra. Put your hands up if you've heard of algebra.
One way the school has found to help develop partnerships with local primary schools and aid early identification of the gifted and talented is to host maths masterclasses for Year 6 pupils.
A volunteer to come and make 2x plus y.
The big question about identification is that you can't identify children unless you give them an opportunity to show their talents. So any sort of national tests are, if you like, your first line of identification. That's not enough, so teacher recommendation. Let's look at what the teachers really think. We can look at self-nomination. It's quite interesting to ask children about their own interests. What about peer nomination? It's amazing how much information there is in the classroom about who's good at what. Then there are other sorts of diagnostic things that we can do, like looking at CATS tests, which are cognitive achievement tests, where we can see whether children have spiky profiles or not. Children who are very good at one thing, not very good at another, which might mean that the thing that they're not very good at masks the thing that they are very good at.
Put your hands up if you've got, be really honest, 5x take away y. Because that is pretty hard.
Because of the multicultural diversity we have here, one of the things that we're very keen to ensure is that language and ethnicity is not a barrier to learning.
There's absolutely no reason why children who don't speak English fluently shouldn't be on the gifted and talented register. We need to be looking for children who've got specific learning difficulties, children who are maybe even on the special needs register. It's a totally inclusive model, and we're looking for children from all walks of life, all backgrounds.
What evidence is there along the coast of South America that might lead us to believe something is happening along this coast?
Is it a mountain range?
There's a huge mountain range.
St Marylebone School has been engaged in delivering a gifted and talented programme since 1999. It uses provision as the main means of identifying gifted and talented students.
This school has a preferred model, which is to concentrate more on provision than identification. Now, the DFES want you to identify, and you have to do that, no doubt about it. But I think the way to get your school on board is to talk more about provision. Because if you then think, right, okay, we've got to stretch certain pupils, some people will say, well, why not, we've got a duty to stretch all pupils. Well, you have.
In pairs, what I want you to do is to use this evidence to come up with a statement that says subduction zones, like this one, exist.
At St Marylebone, stretching all students requires the teaching of challenging thinking and questioning skills.
What happens if you put water with fire on?
Ordinarily, the fire would get quenched, but I don't think that's
No,
it depends how much water there is.
So if you put water on something like hot oil?
It blows up.
Yeah. In the lesson, I'm not the most important person, they're the most important people, and they're learning. So my pace of teaching is less important than their pace of learning. So give them materials that they don't feel totally comfortable with, that they have to work at.
When the two plates are pushing together, there's loads and loads and loads of friction. So that would be producing lots of heat.
Because it goes up, it moves up through the thing. But that doesn't make sense because it has to get... Oh, no, because the sediment probably melts and turns into lava and then it comes out through... Okay, come on.
And thinking skills very much builds on the breadth and the depth which is essential for children's learning, particularly the gifted and talented children, and looking for opportunities which make the lesson a little bit different, a bit more challenging, a bit more creative, and to take them to a different level.
Pick out what's the most convincing evidence that this might be true then? Yeah?
Fold mountains.
The fold mountains, yeah. Okay, so what?
That they're caused by the pressure.
One simple technique we often use is the sort of so what technique, and get a pupil to say something and then you just say so what, and they have to answer that and then you say so what, and they just develop higher and higher and higher, so they're justifying their statements.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Why this way round? Why not the other way round?
Is it because the properties of the oceanic crust, they're thinner and more dense than the continental crust?
Do you know why this is more dense?
No.
You know why?
Well, because the crust has no contact with air.
The best way to meet G&T pupils' needs is to do it in the classroom. Not only because that's good for them, but it also has an effect on the whole rest of the class. We know from research that if we set our expectations and our aspirations higher by looking at the needs of the more able children in the class, we get a slipstream effect where we get improved provision and therefore improved learning for the whole school.
Right, now then, weight. Weight is actually a force. Why? Karen?
Because it kind of weighs something down.
Not quite. Kevin?
We're pulling the area it's on down.
Nearly. You said something about pull, that's good. That's it. Something about pulling. Go on, Jordan.
It has something to do with gravity.
Yes, it has something to
At Eastleigh, staff use many learning tools, styles and methods, so lessons can be fun and stimulating for all abilities.
Which weighs more, ballerina or a tank? Do you know? A tank, right. A tank weighs more. Good. Now then, if my foot or your foot was under there, or if it was under here, which one would hurt more and why? Danielle?
The trunk.
So you think the tank, that would hurt more? Thomas?
I think the ballerina's foot will hurt more.
Okay, I want you to come over here, Thomas.
I knew that a range of kids would get it straight away. There's no point in them going over and over and over if they already understand it. So what's more challenging for them, if they're going to think of a strategy to teach the other students in your class about what pressure is.
We're going to explain to you like what pressure is, so can you all like huddle up? All come close together, sort of like maybe in a round circle, like meant to squash.
They know that people are relying on them for knowledge, and if they can teach it, that is a really good learning technique for them themselves.
Even though you may not weigh much, you still have like a concentrated level of pressure, which is obviously if you step on someone, your stiletto heels is going to hurt more than someone just stepping on a flat heel like mine. True?
True.
Being on the gifted and talented register, it helps me because it gives me many opportunities, especially for things like building my confidence up, teaching me different styles of learning.
Okay, is that it, guys?
Yeah.
That's excellent, well done.
When schools identify students, they generally have 2/3 of the cohort as academically gifted and 1/3 as talented in art, performance or sports.
In front of you, there is a ladder, OK? All you're going to try and do is run from here down to the end of the ladder without touching any bits of the metal or the material. Ready, go. Look at
Capital City Academy specialises in sporting achievement, believing in spotting talent early.
We have a battery of tests that we do for prospective Year 7s in Year 6. So they come in January to do 14 tests, which are based on the fundamental skills. That's agility, balance, coordination, speed striking, kinesthetic awareness, gliding and buoyancy.
For students who show real talent in a particular sport, Capital City Academy provides a wide range of support and facilities.
What we're doing with gifted and talented sports people in the school is not an end in itself, although for the young people in it, it's an end in itself. It's actually part of a much bigger strategy about trying to develop the talent in everybody. Leadership sits very well with talent in sport, so develop the leadership potential in everybody.
Defense!
Hannah, a runner-up in the Wimbledon finals for her age group, is given 3 afternoons a week to train.
Okay, so what we're going to be doing today, Hannah, is working towards looking at Act 2, Scene 2.
Hannah is given individual tuition to help her keep up with core academic subjects. Teachers at the academy understand well the pressure that budding sports stars are under.
Often important that academic and sport doesn't necessarily go side by side. It should be stage, not age. The academic will often wait another year. That opportunity to get into the British team or go to the Commonwealth Games or the Olympic Games won't wait. So we have to make an assessment of where the student is and how well we can support them in achieving on both sides.
Let's just start with the first question. So you should remember these from last year, but we'll look back at your last one as well. Right, tell me subjects which you think you're doing that are your strengths, that you're doing well in.
I'm doing well in French because I learnt French in my Year 6.
At St Marylebone each term, personalised learning programmes for every student on the Gifted and Talented register are reviewed. Liz Jones, the Gifted and Talented coordinator, is responsible for the identification of the cohort across the school and for monitoring provision.
Teaching and learning styles. So when do you come out of a lesson and think, wow? Well, we provide for the gifted and talented. I keep an eye on them and I meet them and I talk to them. And then as a school, we get that information and pass that back to all members of staff because it's just very interesting to see, because obviously we are the teachers. It's good to know what these pupils need. Right, competition you like. You've got competitive, right, so...
As a school, if you value all your pupils, then you cannot do without a Gifted and Talented programme. The question is, why aren't you doing it? Not why don't you do it? Why aren't you already? You should be. Because the knock-on effects and in whole school teaching, I think is fantastic.
If you're looking at this piece of work on the wall here, what's different about that to what you might be doing normally in a Year 11 lesson?
It doesn't really look like something like a building or a...
Right, OK, so I think...
Teachers at St Marylebone are constantly challenging pupils throughout all their subjects.
Today we're going to make the change from neatly into a little bit messy, into not taking a challenge maybe, into taking a challenge.
I think in secondary school it's important to bring imagination to the lesson. I think we have very limited resources. My role as an art teacher in the context of that lesson is to make the students reach higher, aim further, go beyond what their expectations are. And I think that ties in with the idea of what Gifted and Talented is. It's the ability to extend your aspiration beyond which even you think you're able.
Look around, you need to look at the work to be inspired by what you're going to say.
I like how this one's come off the wall completely and she's even started drawing here, even though if you take it off you won't see it. I
think this was a nice thing that actually maybe one student tentatively took that bait of the rules aren't the edge of the paper and the rules aren't using a pencil, the rules are do what you want, this is the format. Making a connection between what you know about yourself and what you know you can do or what you imagine you can do. And then surprise, surprise, you've done it.
I just like this bit here. Not just that bit, but it's really, I don't know, but no one else's is really off the wall like that.
Right, so it's sort of about breaking rules, isn't it?
There's a natural cycle that schools go through when they're looking at G&T provision. If they have this general conversation first so that they get a clear idea of what a definition is of gifted and talented, then that helps them to identify who the gifted and talented children are, and then they start providing for them. But the thing is, the better that they get about providing for them, the better they get at identifying able pupils. So we start getting this positive cycle of identifying able pupils, providing for them, which helps us to identify even more.